The issue here, yes, potentially, people could say David could be bisexual, but I would still make the argument there's zero evidence. In my book, Holy Sexuality in the Gospel, I talk about David and Bathsheba. That passage where it says he took off his robe. Also in that passage it says he took off his armor. He took his sword and he gave it to David. Now, to fill you in on some of the background context that sometimes we miss in our modern context, when a soldier gives anyone their sword, what does that mean? Surrender, or I am submitting to you. Who was Jonathan? Son of King Saul. King Saul. Son Jonathan. In other words, who was supposed to be king after Saul died? Jonathan. Who was David? Not a king at that time, even though he was anointed king by Samuel. But officially, the people still viewed King Saul as king, and Jonathan as next in line. By Jonathan giving his sword, his armor, his robe, in ancient times they layered, okay? Okay? They layered. Giving your robe doesn't mean he was stark naked. What's also the sign of a robe, especially if you are the son of a king? Royalty. His robe was different than David's robe. By Jonathan taking off his royal robe, his princely robe, taking off his armor, giving his sword to David, what did that mean? In our modern context, we're clueless. We're like, I don't know, they're gay. In an ancient context, you know what that meant? Nothing other than saying, I'm next in line to the throne, but I'm giving that up because I know that you are the anointed one, and I'm submitting myself to you as king. That's the only thing that meant. Only thing. Like, you don't have to say that, but for us, we miss that, right? We're like, oh, he's naked. They're gay. Now, yes, did they make a covenant? They're like, oh, they made a covenant together, David and Jonathan. They must be gay. That was a marriage thing. No. Oftentimes we call David and Jonathan what? Friends, right? They're the quintessential example of men best friends. But I did a little bit of study in Scripture. And I looked if ever the Bible ever calls them friends. Never once. Instead, you know what they have called each other? Brothers. When they made a covenant, you know what that was? It was a political covenant. Jonathan, I'm next to the throne, but I'm submitting any right to the throne to David because you're the anointed one. That's one covenant. The other covenant was a covenant of family. In other words, they committed. Read it in Scripture. They said, if I die, what happens? You take care of my family, right? If you die, I'm going to take care of your family. Isn't that exactly what David did? Mephibosheth. Say that fast 10 times. Mephibosheth was Jonathan's son. Did not David take care of him all the way, throughout, treated him special, treated him like his own son, ate at his home table like his son. Only sons do that. That's the covenant, nothing sexual. So there's absolutely nothing in there that showed that they were sexual or romantic, but they were brothers. They were great, strong brothers. But yes, bisexuality is very common now, but I think when people, it's one thing for the world to say, well, I'm bisexual, that's fine, but when people bring up David, these are then people that try to say, well, they're Christian and bisexuality is okay. I would still, in those situations, I would still say, do you still hold that sex is reserved for marriage? However you define marriage, because in most situations, gay Christians, what you find is that they are dating and having sex outside of even gay marriage. Which, then the argument is, so you're saying that sex can go outside of marriage. See, when you give in one truth in the Bible, you're going to give in multiple ways in the Bible. So for argument's sake, let's just say, okay, marriage can be between man and a man and a man, woman and woman, whatever. Let's just say for argument's sake. That's not true, but for argument's sake. Then why is it that you're having sex out of marriage? Why is it, or even that you're dating someone who's a non-Christian? Like, I know parents be like, oh, my daughter's, saying that she's a Christian. Oh, okay. Is she practicing? No. And of course, just because you're not going to church isn't necessarily true, even though I would still argue with that. But is she dating a Christian? No. Like, I would tell her, even if you were dating a boy, and if this boy was not a Christian and you were, I would say, you're wrong to date someone who's not a Christian. The Bible's really clear about that. Why would you be doing that? When you give in one place in Scripture, you're always inevitably going to give in more than one. My video about genetics, it is available on my website, and you could view that. Follow my YouTube channel, and I'm going to be putting more of those videos up.